Okay, yeah. Yo guys, what is up? Moxie here with another Wonderlands video, and today we're talking about my Hotshot build. Now this is a variation of my Spellslinger build that's going to be focusing on the laserhand spells and the fire element. The Spellslinger build was focused on the cryo ice spike spells. This is very much a fire build, and it absolutely destroys Chaos 50. I hope you guys enjoy the video. We're going to break down everything you guys need to know. Let's get right into it. So we're going to do an overview of the build first, and then we'll get into the gear specifics, and then the skill tree specifics. And just note, I'm not wearing a single piece of Ascended gear on this build. This build is a little bit gear specific, but you do not need any pieces of Ascended gear to do absolutely insane damage. So to start us off, we are using the laserhand spell. This is what we're focusing on for this build, and there's a few things to note about this. First off, it can roll with 1 spell charge, 2 spell charges, or 3 spell charges. I only have 2 spell charge variants, which are fine for me. With the low cooldown on these, you can basically fire them forever. You do not, on this build, really need to ever fire your gun. You will be constantly casting spells, and your spells, if you're spec'd correctly, should just about one-shot everything. Now, the big key to using these spells is they have a crit chance of 3%, which is terrible, but this line right here, they have a 100% critical chance when fully charged. So when we fully charge these spells, we are guaranteed to critical hit, which is super important. One, because critical hitting on spells are going to dramatically increase our damage, and second, because we can pair them with our class mod that we're going to be using. Now, I have a volatile smart armor. We're going to be looking for this smart armor here because it's going to reduce our critical hit chance by 50%, which we don't care about, but increase our critical hit damage by 50%. And remember, every single time that I charge up my spell, I'm going to be dealing a critical hit. So I'm getting 50% more damage on all of my spell casts, which is why the smart armor is so strong here. Now, the other part of the what makes this class mod so good is it's spec'd into double knot. Now, this is basically the same skill tree as the Spellslinger build, where we're going to be taking advantage of our class mod, speccing into double knot. Our class mod specs into double knot. That is going to give us our points into it, even though we don't spec all the way down here. As you can see, it reads bonus gun damage 12%, indicating that there's 3 points into this. And whenever I score a critical hit with my spell, I'm going to deal gun damage, and every single spell cast that I'm going to deal is going to deal gun damage. This gun damage bonus double dips in all of our all damage multipliers and is very, very strong. On top of that, we also are going to be going to Graveborn skill tree to get Blast Gasp, which is a 20% chance to do 35% ability damage, or 35% of our spell damage as ability damage, which also double dips and was recently kind of buffed in that it now scales off of Graveborn power, which it didn't before. So we're taking advantage of double knot on every single spell, as well as the chance for Blast Gas, and that is what is giving us so obscene damage on our spell shot. For the rest of the gear, there's some pretty cool things that we could take advantage of. The first are the Elder Wyvern rings. I do not have a better roll of this. I was just looking for spell critical hit damage and the increased fire damage, which this one rolled. You can get these in the vending machine, but they will increase my fire damage by 20%. I'd like to get another one. Like I said, this build is not perfectly min-maxed or anything like that, so another one of these would be really awesome, but I've got my other spell ring with spell damage and spell critical hit damage on this one. But just note that I would like to get another Elder Wyvern ring and use 2 of those for the 40% increased fire damage. Is going to go a little bit longer and a little bit further than the just flat spell damage, because I already have a lot of flat spell damage. Just letting you guys know, 2 Elder Wyvern rings is, I think, where this is going to go. Next up, I'm using a Cursed Wit for bossing with on spellcast increased gun damage by 30%. Now, our enchants are pretty important here for min-maxing our damage. This on spellcast increased gun damage is good because double knot's going to proc every single spellcast, and every single spellcast is going to deal gun damage. So I'm just increasing my double knot damage by 30% whenever I cast a spell. For my enchants on my spells, I'm using on spellcast increase fire damage by 30% and on spellcast increase ability damage by 30%. Note, Blast Gas is ability damage, so it doing more is amazing for me. On my weapon, I'm still using a pixie gun. Note that I'm not really throwing pixies while running around with this build, just because I prefer just to be constantly casting my spells, and there's literally zero downtime with this setup on casting our spells. But I do have pixies, which stack stack Faithful Thralls. They do spell damage. They're going to get Double Knot. They can also deal Blast Gas. So we've got Pixies that do Blast Gas plus Double Knot. These things are extremely strong. Note you're going to want for the Fear Knot Pixies. These will be the spell weapons. I've got increased spell damage here, and then I've got a Mage Staff with on spell cast increased elemental damage by 20%. A lot of this gear is still the same gear that I was using on Spellslinger. The one thing to note that's actually kind of important now for boss killing is on Chaos 50. This is a Chaos 50 build. Enemies have a ton of health, and elemental matching becomes even more important. So what I like to do is I like to throw this Fear Knot out a few times to get my spell weaving stacks plus my stacks of Faithful Thralls, because Pixies now work with Faithful Thralls, and then I'll swap to a weapon that's got the on spellcast increased damage enchant that matches the elemental type of the enemy I'm going up against. For example, I'll swap to this Skeet Prod if I'm going to shoot a laser at Wastard because he's got a shield, and the Double Knot will deal whatever damage type of the weapon that I'm holding in my hand. So if I want to deal a Double Knot with Shock, I'd swap to the Skeet Prod. If I want to deal it with Fire, I'd swap to my Auto Magic. Doesn't really matter what weapons you're holding. Just note that if you wanted to like min-max and really do some huge damage to bosses, it does help to like have a shock weapon to deal some shock damage if you're fighting an enemy that's got a giant shield, for example. For bossing scenarios, I do like using the Body Rune. I haven't rolled my Body Rune quite well enough, so it's got on spellcast increased dark magic damage, which is fine for now because all of my spells are doing dark magic, but I would like to roll this with the gun damage. But Body Rune for mobbing and the Cursed Wit for bossing. And lastly, so I don't leave it out, I'm using a Joint Training, which is going to give me fire damage and Spellshot power. This Spellshot power is really nice. I haven't gotten anything that's quite good as rolled well. I'd like to try this out with fire damage Graveborn power, just because Graveborn power would increase the damage of Blast Gas, which could possibly outweigh the Spellshot here. So look for either fire damage with Spellshot power or fire damage with Graveborn power. The secondary effects on this didn't really roll well. Dark Magic Efficiency and Status Effect Chance. Obviously, this would be better if it rolled all damage, but still a pretty good roll. And then I've got the Joint Training on. Fate Maker critical hits increase Companion critical hit chance by 80% for 6 seconds, and Companion critical hits increase Fate Maker critical hit damage by 30%. Note that I am going to be summoning, because I'm using Morheim's Blessing, every time I cast a spell, I'm going to activate my kill skills, which are Dark Hydras. So I've got these Dark Hydras out, and whenever I crit, which is literally every single spell cast, my companions get 80% increased critical hit chance for 6 seconds, and when they crit, I get 30% more critical hit damage. This doesn't proc like a tremendous amount of time. It's definitely not 100% uptime, but when it does proc, it's super nice because, once again, every spell that we cast is going to be a guaranteed crit as long as we're fully charging. Note, with this build, do not shoot these spells without fully charging because you are going to be missing out on just so much damage. So full charge every spell, and then you should be hitting, I am usually hitting from like 500,000 to 1 million a spell cast, and then on bosses with my full setup, we've hit multiple millions with each spell. It is pretty crazy. All right, real quick skill tree, because I've kind of already mentioned some things. Spell Sniper, we're not picking for our spells, but if we do throw a Pixie, our Pixie will benefit from Spell Sniper, which is very nice. But if you're feeling like you need more cooldown, go into Font of Mana here. We're getting magic bullets because this gun damage now affects Double Knot, which is ginormous. So any gun damage increases that you get, especially magic bullets, will increase our damage from Double Knot, and all of our spell damage increases will feed into more Double Knot damage, which is amazing. Prestidigitation for more reload speed. I am not going Mage Armor. I find it F's with my bossing too much when I'm using the Cursed Wit, and both Double Knot and Blast Gas double dip in the Cursed Wit damage multiplier. So not getting Cursed Wit is a huge pain for bossing. So I'm not going Mage Armor. My survivability is fine because of Sanguine Sacrament. I'm casting spells constantly, and every spell I cast, I'm getting 30% of my health back, basically. So actual survivability is pretty good. It's not the best, but it's pretty good. I don't go down very much as long as I'm casting my spells, and we kill everything from like 1 million miles away. Glass Cannon for more spell damage, and then High Thread Count for the more spell weaving stacks. Essence Drain, more spell cooldown. Faithful Thralls for more all damage dealt. Sanguine Sacrament, health regen. Stain of the Soul gives us healing from our spells with dark magic damage and just more damage. Dark Hydras we summon to get more Faithful Thralls. Ascension for more health and spell damage, which is also going to feed better into keeping us alive. Lord of the Edges for the extra damage dealt, and then Blast Gas, big damage. A lot of the one-shots that you saw in this video were done on multiple tries to get Blast Gas to proc. So note, if you go up against a boss, and sometimes you see a ginormous chunk, and sometimes you don't see a ginormous chunk, that's probably Blast Gas. Just letting you guys know that, like, every single time you fight a boss, you're not going to, like, one-shot it, because Blast Gas will not proc every single time, and then Morheim's Blessing. And lastly, for my myth rank, I actually switched over to Steam and my myth rank reset, and I haven't been spending the points. So just about all of my trees are pretty much empty, besides like a few points that I spent in the very beginning. So note that you can do this much damage without having like an absurd myth rank, because I literally have spent like maybe 20 points total in my myth rank. And then for our hero points, we're going crit damage, spell cooldown, and max HP and ward is what I went with. We don't really need the status damage because things are getting one shot. We don't need the crit chance. The one thing I mentioned about the Graveborn power, it would be great to get more damage from Blast Gas, but I currently don't have that. I'm full Spellshot power. And yeah, guys, that is it for the build video. I haven't made a Wonderlands build video in a while. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If the feedback is good, I'd like to keep making more. I know people are frustrated with this game, but I still really am enjoying it, and I will have this save file in the Discord if you guys want to check it out. This save file will also have my God Rolled Amalgam that I got. If you guys want to mess around with that, I'm not using it for this build because obviously people would get mad at me, but I did get this amalgam to drop. It's probably my best item I've ever gotten, and yeah, it'll be on the save if you guys want to check it out and mess around with it. I will catch you all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.